Peter, how relieved were you to get the Jordan Clark deal away this afternoon?
Yeah, look, it's always a really stressful period, particularly the last hour or so as negotiations continued. So very relieved to be able to come to agreement with Geelong, but I'm sure Jordan and his family were even more relieved that we're able to get that trade done.
And at what stage of the afternoon was the deal finalised with the Cats?
Not that long before it was actually executed publicly. So we were talking all the way up to probably 15 minutes before it was announced publicly. So a lot of toing and froing. We weren't far away, but in the end, we came to a position, I think, where clearly we gave a little more. And I think that also Geelong accepted a little less as well from where we were, say, last night. I think both clubs moved a little bit.
What does he bring to the club, do you think?
He brings great character, but he also brings obvious athletic attributes with his speed, also his endurance. He's got a really attacking mentality, so he should really assist with our ball movement and particularly our speed of ball movement, whether that is in defence or on the wing. That'll be a decision for Geordie and the coaches to work through, but they're the obvious attributes that he brings.
Can you assess your trade period overall?
Probably in 10 years, Duff, to be honest, but it was disappointing to lose Adam, and the reasons for that are well documented. He's moved back to Victoria, but I think from there we've come out quite well. Obviously, with another top 10 pick. The pick 19 for also documented reasons will become quite valuable. We're not scared to use that pick. If there's a player there that we really love, we'll select that player. But there will be opportunities through the day to look at what other clubs are proposing. So those three picks, 6, 8, and 19, we think allows us access to exceptional young talent to add to our list.
Do you believe that Jordan comes straight into your best 22 next year?
He's certainly got the talent to, but Geordie won't want any walk-up starts either. He'll want to earn his position. And we think that clearly he's got enough talent to be in our best 22, but he'll look forward to getting in and working really hard and developing trust with the teammates and the coaching staff. But we think he'll be a player. I think he turns 21 on the weekend. We think he'll be a player for us for a long, long time.
And obviously he plays either halfback or wing. Do you see him as a wingman for Fremantle?
Open to the possibilities, Duff. Halfback or wing, or even in the VFL, he played some good games on ball as well. So further along as his game develops, I wouldn't rule that out either. But we're just really excited to bring him in for those obvious attributes that he does have. He's got rare speed, endurance mix, and we think he'll really add to our group.
What about Will Brodie? Where does he fit on your list, do you think?
Yeah, I think he'll work really hard with the midfield group. He's a really good clearance player. We think that sometimes with another opportunity in a new environment, players can really flourish. And we think Will deserves that opportunity as a former top 10 pick himself. He's impressed everyone who's communicated with him at the club over the past few days since the announcement was made. But we see him as an inside mid who could drift forward as well. I think he's got an underrated aerial game at about 190 centimetres, and he's got some genuine speed and power as well. Like all players, Will has some things to work on in his game, but losing Adam, we thought that it was important we bring in some more midfielders as well, whether that be through the trade or the draft that's coming up later.
And have you spoken to Rory Lobb to make sure there's no angst there with him, any attempt to leave the club not bearing fruit?
I'm sure Justin has reached out to Rory, and Justin and I will catch up with him tomorrow. I had waited until the end of the trade period. It's just that crazy a period that we wanted to get through this period before we had those kinds of meetings. But having said that, we don't think there'll be any issue whatsoever with Rory. He shared some texts with his teammates about really coming in and training hard and helping us get where we want to get to. And also for Rory to become the player that he wants to be, and we all believe that he can be. So I'm not foreseeing any issues whatsoever, Mark.
If there isn't a player you really like at pick 19, and with the strategic significance of that pick, will you attempt to use that to get back into next year's draft? Obviously, one of the downsides of the strong hand you've got this year is that you've lost a few picks in next year.
I think there will definitely be those opportunities. I just want to emphasise that the major likelihood would be that we would use that pick ourselves, but there'll be a number of proposals put forward to us, whether that's a small slide on the night itself in that year's draft and an additional pick into the future, or potentially a pretty good pick in the year following in that draft. So we'll sit back. The beauty is we've also got a bit of time. There'll be close to a 24-hour period to assess all of those offers that we think will come in, and we'll make the decision that we think is best for Freo, obviously.
Are clubs already talking to you about that pick, given it seems to be universally accepted it's a highly strategic pick now?
A little bit, but I think what happens with a pick like that is that it appreciates over time, and I think that on the night itself, that'll be when it's of most value. So I couldn't really foresee a possibility of us doing anything with that until the day before round 2, or the half hour before round 2 commences. So we'll sit back and listen, that's for sure, but I think that's when it will be at its most valuable.
And you've mentioned best available. Have you thought of type of player that you might need with 6, 8 and 19 if you use it?
I've only just started looking at the top 20, if you like, and the types of players that are out there. Whether it is a key position player, a Victorian, a South Australian, a Western Australian, at that end of the draft won't really come into our thinking. It'll be that, I know it's a bit of a cliche, it will be that best available player. There is always a waiting for West Australians, that's for sure, but at that top end of the draft, the weighting is a little less. And look, I've made the comment before that 8 out of our top 10 in the Doig this year were Victorians. So I think we're duty bound to just select the best players.
Do you feel
the best players?
Do you feel you've been able to take steps to make sure that the departure of Chera won't hurt you too much in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing that we lose the great character that is Adam, but also the 4 years of development that we put into him. But we think there will be opportunities in the midfield for players like Darcy Tucker. Will Brodie comes in, Connor Blakely as well. We experimented a little bit with Sam Switkowski doing some pinch hitting in the midfield late. We think that's something we'd like to continue to explore. Michael Walters is another one, and we didn't have Nathan Fyfe for the last third of the season. So with Brayshaw, Sarong, Mundy as well, we think we've got pretty good depth there, but there will be opportunities, I think, for other players.
Melbourne won a flag with a team that had a great spread of pace, if you like, across the ground. Is there a premium on speed, do you think, with recruiting now? Obviously, Jordan's very quick. It's
always helpful, that's for sure. And one of the disappointments of this year for us has been not getting a lot of football out of Michael Frederick and Sam Sturt, who would be two of our quickest players. They're going really, really well at the moment. It is our aim to get a really good pre-season into those two. And the prospect of having Jordan, Sturdy, Michael Frederick in our best 22 is really exciting because they all have genuine speed.
When does Will Brodie get here to start work with you, Peter?
Yeah, just looking at late October for him to come across. His partner's finishing off some study up there on the Gold Coast. We're preparing for the likelihood that he'd have to do a quarantine coming in from Queensland. So we're working through those details. We would like to get here as soon as possible, but as you'd expect with a shift of such significance, there's a few loose ends he has to tidy up, but he'd like to get here early, and he'll come in and train with our younger players, even though he's entitled to have a longer vacation period. He's pretty keen to get stuck in, and he'll join the 1st to 4 year players.
Mate, is it my computer or is that a different shade of purple?
Might be your computer. It's looking the normal colour here, mate. So yeah, you might have something going on at your end.
Is there anyone else?
G'day, Belly. It's Chatters here. That stuff's all the good stuff. I'll just chip in with a couple. With
Sure.
with the Rory Lobb trade, did GWS actually make a formal offer, or was it just always going to be so far from what was required that it wasn't even tabled in the end?
Yeah, that'd be more a question for if you're talking about a financial offer for his management. What I can say is that there was never a formal request for a trade from Rory, and really there's not a lot for us to do until such time as a player asks to be traded, and then you explore all of those options that are there. But no, there was no formal request for a trade.
Right, and there was a bit of fun and games with Colin Young between yourself and him, I guess. What did you make of all that?
I thought it would be entertaining to people, and I understand, as anyone in my position would, that managers are advocating for their players, and our role is to do the best thing for the club. So I thought it was a bit of banter, harmless, and look, we've talked many times since, and there'll be no issue there.
Cool, thanks for that.
Belly, just one from me. What did you make of the trade period overall, not just from a Fremantle point of view? It seemed relatively quiet. Is that how it felt for you guys as well?
Well, not so much for us, because we did have a bit on, and the negotiations with Geelong, they're probably hundreds of phone calls that you have to make with a negotiation such as that. Overall, with TPP reductions and list size reductions still pretty fresh as well, it probably wasn't a climate conducive to a lot of player movement. I think in time, when things get back to normality, or we hope they get back to some sort of normality, player movement will increase again. So that'll be something that will no doubt come in years to come. But those factors I mentioned probably stymied a bit of player movement this year.
Peter, were you in any way considering walking away from the Jordan trade if Geelong didn't give anything?
No, we would have seen it through until the end, until the deadline. We'd keep negotiating hard. We were very keen, obviously, to bring Jordan in, but we had established very early with Geelong that pick 19 would not be part of any trade for Jordan, and we made that really clear. And clearly, there's other people that were made aware of that as well, which is the process that you go through, as in management groups and Jordan and other people as well. So we were prepared to go right to the end, but there were some boundaries as to how much we could actually offer what we thought was prudent to offer, notwithstanding our great enthusiasm to bring Jordan in.
How instrumental was Jordan himself in getting the deal done? Because there was reports of a fiery conversation between him and Geelong. How much of a role did he play?
The players' role, once they'd indicated to their club that they'd like a trade, their involvement after that is minimal, really. I know that Jordan had some conversations with people at Geelong, which is to be expected. I did see Stephen Wells briefly interviewed, and he said that is untrue, that there was a fiery phone call, and certainly that Jordan hung up the phone, which is what I've seen reported. Stephen Wells has said that's totally untrue. So there are conversations like that when players ask for a trade, where they talk to coaches and footy managers and list managers and CEOs and the like. But the role of the player is to sit back and be really nervous and wait to see if an outcome is reached or if it is not.